Well, I guess we can just go ahead and get started. I do want to just say for everyone who's watching, this will be the first episode, I guess, of a new little series we'll be doing with the Wine Club, where we just get with people from the wineries that we're showcasing and kind of talking a little bit about the wine. And super happy to have Troy Heinzman of Albert Bichot here with us for the inaugural episode.
Well, I'm glad I could be a part of your experiment, man.
Yeah,
I'm sure it's going to be great.
in a world where Zoom calls have kind of become the norm, we thought, why not try to take advantage of that, right?
No, I think it's great. I've done more Zoom interviews than I ever thought I would, and pre-sales. I've done virtual pre-sales, and everybody else gets to try these great wines, and I'm talking about them. I don't get to drink them with them. Yeah, it's a little bit of a change of pace.
Oh, absolutely. But, I mean,
yeah.
it's maybe not the maybe it doesn't take the place of meeting in person and trying these wines with people in person, but it's the best we got right now. So,
Well, fortunately, I've been selling Burgundy for, I guess 20 some odd years between restaurants, distributors. I worked for Bichot for 8 years, at co-brand. And then I worked for Dreyfus Ashby, which is owned by the Drouin family, for 4. And now I've been with Domaines Albert Bichot for my 4th year now. I've really jumped into Burgundy head first. And there's a reason, it's the younger guys always ask me, the nephews and nieces, what I do for a living, because they think I just drive around and drink wine all day, which isn't completely inaccurate. But I tell them, like, well, if you had a choice of selling, nothing against Kias or Bugattis, I'm like, I'd rather sell a Bugatti.
That's true.
It's just the prestige of the area. It's also the quality that comes with this area. A report came out just the other day that I read. This year, 33 of the top 100 wines are from Burgundy again, or 33 of the top 50 actually are from Burgundy. So Burgundy's it's the crown jewel of the wine industry. There's certain areas that make some great wines. Tuscany and Bordeaux, Napa. There's some beautiful wine growing areas out there. Germany. But man, when it comes to just the quality and the consistency, Burgundy's it. It's definitely the elite wine, but also affordable. And that's what we talk about most of the time is, we do have these crown jewels, but affordability is fantastic out of Burgundy. You just have to know where to look. And I'm certain one of the wines you're talking about today is one of those affordable, fun, unpretentious wines is what we love to share. Those people who spend a lot of money on Burgundy, they know what they're looking for. They know they want Corton Charlemagne, they want Richebourg, they want those elite wines, but the masses, we want wines we can just drink every day. And that's what this wine falls into.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think that's so well put. One thing I really love about Albert Bichot is that, especially when you have someone who's trying to get into wine or get into French wine and maybe Burgundy specifically, with Albert Bichot, you can put that all in front of them. You can see the scope of Burgundy, which, is one thing I wanted to ask you. It's, how has Albert Bichot been able to kind of carve out this, place in the landscape, that massive landscape that is Burgundy?
Yeah, it's a great question because it is one of the things, that I've had a benefit of working with so many great Burgundy producers and some of the bigger names in Burgundy. And, there's a lot of interesting facts about Bichot that I didn't really understand. Some of it, I learn something every time I go there. I mean, quite honestly, we're all students of Burgundy for life. But what makes Bichot distinctly different is that instead of, using economies of scale to take all of their production and drop it into 1 or 2 consolidated facilities, Bichot has kept 6 separate domains functioning. And we're the only producer that has 6 separate domains that have their own winemaking team, viticultural team. We do all the press, barrel aging, everything at that facility, at that domain. And then we have a centralized bottling plant. And where that plant is in Beaune is also where we do our negociant wines. We have wine partners, but because of the manpower from all the domains, our wine partners work with us. Negotiant's a weird term. People kind of throw that around and make it sound like it's a bad word, but it's really not. It's the way Burgundy has to exist. There's no other way for it to exist, and it's what makes it what it is. Really, it's the heart and soul of what makes Burgundy intricate and complex is the ownership issues. But with these domains and all of our manpower, we work in the vineyards with all of our producers, all of our grower partners, working towards sustainability. And as of 2012, all of our domains, all of our properties that we own and control are certified EcoCert by the EU. And then as of 2018 vintage, this vintage we're on right now, a lot of our, all of our Côte d'Or domains and our Côte Chalonnais domain are certified organic by the EU, which is 20 years in the making to get that certification. It took a long time. It's because when you go into the vineyards, you hear the bugs, you see the bugs, you feel the bugs. They're on you, and it's because it's alive. The weeds are, you have to walk through them in the vineyards to get through the vines because it's alive. It's not just a monoclimate. It's a living organism. The entire climat is what they like to call them. So Bichot's done a really good job of having a lot of individuality within its house style. And another thing that makes them really fantastic for especially the American palate is even though we have great ageability in our wines, I mean, we certainly have wines that'll age out 30, 40 years. We have a white wine, Mouton, which is the only monopole Grand Cru Chablis. That wine could age 40 years in your cellar, and it's a white wine. But with that ageability, you'd think that we're really super tight wines that you can't drink for a long time, which is actually not true. They produce their wines in a style during fermentation and barreling that makes them user-friendly when they're young. I mean, they're not fruited. They're not overly fruited at all, but they're soft with the tannins. They have very approachable acids when they're young, and they have really pretty fruit. So they're quenching and delicious when they're young, which is great because nobody has patience. I don't have patience. I get a bottle, I want to open it. But if you have the patience, if you buy a case of wine and you open a bottle every 2 years to see how it's progressing, it's going to be there for you that way as well, which is a great way with Burgundy to really get a grasp of what that bottle or that particular climat, that terroir is all about, is to buy, a couple bottles, a 6-pack, a 12-pack, whatever it is. And then every year or 2 years, you open up another bottle, keep a little notebook in there, and this is what it tasted like when I first tried it. This is what it's like now. Because I can tell you a fun vintage right now is the 2015 vintage. Really pretty fruit forward, very generous, but it's aged out so beautifully. And it's such a nice wine because the fruit dropped a little bit with time. And the acids are still there because it's Burgundy. And now it's to me fantastic. I mean, it's really showing a little bit young to show as nice as it does. Probably, I don't know how long it'll age out, if it'll age as long as a 2012 or a 2018. But man, they are so delicious right now. And 2012 reds, oh my gosh, if you can get a 2012 red from Burgundy, they're perfect right now. So what we're talking about, something that's 8 years old, and they're showing brilliantly. And that goes for 13s and 14s as well. They're really, a lot of those reds are in a great place to try right now. You don't have to wait for them to get 15, 20 years old to show their character. Really, it's 5 to 8 years is a beautiful window for a lot of these red Burgundies. And whites, honestly. Chambon-Rocher, Merceau, Pouligny's. You get about 3 to 4 years on those. They're brilliant. 1 year, they're not showing everything they have.
Mm-hmm.
They're really closed up. But that's what Bichot is as far as it being unique. The 6 different domains, the negociant side, the land ownership. We're the 3rd largest Burgundy producer globally. So number 1 is Bichot, which I mentioned I worked for. Number 2 is Latour, massive amount of production. Number 3 is Bichot, and then Bouchard Père and Fils is 4, and then you have Drouhin is number 5. So and that's in land ownership for us with the Drouhins. We're larger in land ownership. We have 265 acres. They have about 209. And then volume-wise, well, we sell more than the Drouhins now globally, which is pretty fun to be a part of right now because a lot of people don't know Bichot like they do Drouhin and Bichot. We're not, or Latour. We're not out there like that. So we're kind of like the new kid on the block with a 200-year-old history because we're 1831. That's when the winery was started by the family. It's still family owned today, 6 generations. We're older than Bichot. We've been around longer than that particular producer. So really does set us apart in a lot of ways from the other producers out there. And the slew of ratings. I mean, it's just, I'm sure you've seen them. It's ridiculous.
You'd mentioned some of the the areas moving towards organic certified, and does Bichot have plans to do that as a wide sweeping kind of idea over all of the growing regions that y'all are kind of in? Or
yeah, all of our properties are that way, and we're working with our grower partners to go that way as well. You know, you can go back and look at. And we know, look, back in the 80s, Bichot used to sell a lot of fruit off to other guys, and then they wanted to produce their own wines and their own labels. Well, they knew that to get the quality where they wanted, they have to go towards the sustainability. So, and it's worked. If you look at the ratings over time, the quality of Bichot just has gotten better and better as we've gotten further away from industrialized farming and focused on organics and sustainable farming. And now we'll have a biodynamic vineyard, which is so hard to do in Burgundy. But it's going to be right near Nuits-Saint-Georges. Actually, it's in downtown Nuits-Saint-Georges, but it's Clos de Fronton's, one of our domains, and it's got a courtyard out back, and it's surrounded by a wall and trees. So it's going to be a Bourgogne Rouge, and so it's regional level, but it's going to be certified biodynamic because we're able to do that in that one small spot. You can't do that in Burgundy everywhere. It's so tough to find an isolated vineyard where you can actually do biodynamics. So it's super rare to have that kind of opportunity. But Christophe, who oversees all of our vineyard management, that's his little pet project. And then he educates all his team, who in turn educates all of our grower partners on that sustainability. So, Chateau Gris, Domaine de Pavillon, Clos de Fronton, those are all certified organic, and so is our Mercury property, which is Domaine Natalie. And all of those domains, though, are certified EcoCert, which is sustainability by the EU. And we've had that for a while. But man, since we've gotten that, you just tell the quality just keeps going up and up and up and every year. Mother Nature's helping too, man. It is getting hotter. Mm-hmm. So, we foresee the next 20 years for Burgundy, pretty good vintages. It's warmer. We're getting ripe earlier. Used to ripen as late as October. That was harvest. Now harvest can be the last week of August. Actually, we just did a webinar the other day. They're starting to go in the vineyards right now.
Oh, wow.
We're middle of August, and they're looking at harvesting the fruit. I mean, that's early.
Mm-hmm.
So we're getting ripe fruit, right? And I guess the biggest challenge at that point is, does the acid come in? And they've been pretty lucky with Mother Nature working with us, and we do get the acid to come in, but that's your challenge if you have a little early ripening.
Absolutely. Well, let's talk about this Pasta Tout Grand a little bit.
There's 2 blends, right? Pasta Grand's a blend. There's also a wine that started in 2011, was certified in 2011, called a Coteau Bourguignon. Okay. So that's also a blend of primarily Pinot and Gamay, and Pasta Grand has been certified much longer, back in the 30s that one was put in place. Coteau Bourguignon has been around since 37, but it was not certified as an AOC until 2011. So now we have both blended reds. They're both table type wines. Pasta Grand, that name is a reference to how they used to farm. The traditional farming practices is where they would actually have Pinot and Gamay growing in the same vineyards. So that's what that means. It's a reference to that. Now, that's not always the case. Some guys still do that traditional method where the Gamay and Pinot grow together. And the idea is that they'll ripen together so they can harvest it together, that kind of thing. But now they just, they source from different areas that are certified communes for Pinot Noir and Gamay to go into the Pasta Grand. And there's strict rules in how the Pasta Grand is broken down. There's 2/3 of it have to be Pinot Noir, and a third, no more than a third, can be Gamay. And wait, did I get that backwards? No, it's 2/3 Gamay, 1/3 Pinot. I get that backwards. But so many rules in Burgundy.
Right.
And the Pinot gives it its finesse and its elegance. You know, the Gamay gives it more that lush fruit. These are blended table wines. You know, you can add a little bit of white wine to these. You can put Pinot Blanc. You can add a little Algoté. You know, white grapes can go in with some of the red grapes, but no more than 15%. So it's not a common thing to blend into them. So the difference between a Pasta Grande and a Coteau Bourguignon is Coteau can have as low as 1% Pinot Noir
Oh,
and
wow.
be called a Coteau Bourguignon. So you really want to know who your producer is, because here's the whole idea with these is that they're everyday drinking wines. It's something that you can have, you know, really traditionally that was their Sunday wine, right? But it's any day of the week. It's affordable, it's friendly, it goes with lots of different foods because it's so soft with the tannins. But if you add a little bit more Pinot Noir, it makes it a little more elegant, but it also makes it a little more expensive because Pinot Noir grapes are the more expensive grape. So that's what a Coteau gives you, a little more flexibility in how much Pinot Noir you add into it. So they can be a little more affordable if you like that blended experience. But they're not going to have as much Pinot Noir traditionally. We put 10% in ours because our winemakers want them to be a little bit nicer. So the warning on that is don't just go buy a Coteau Bourguignon based on price, because you might as well get a Beaujolais, right? I mean,
Right.
that's 100% Gamay. A Pasta Grande is going to have more stricter rules, so you're guaranteed you're going to get a certain amount of Pinot Noir in a Pasta Grande, which is why they're always a little bit more expensive. You know, it's not going to be Gamay levels. You're going to be able to find a Beaujolais Village at a lower price point than a Pasta Grande, just because of the proportion of Pinot Noir that's used, and Pinot Noir is a more expensive grade. And we don't make them every year. You know,
Yep, that's kind of what my next question was, because this, my understanding is pretty small production, uh, and not a lot was coming stateside, and you don't see a lot of Pasta Grande, at least in our market, or in Memphis here. So why is that exactly?
Well, it's going to be a function of a lot of different variables, right? And one of them is going to be what kind of harvest did we have? You know, is there enough Gamay to go around? Is there enough Pinot Noir to go around? Some years Mother Nature destroys Beaujolais, and we're like, well, you know what? We need all the Gamay we got to put into the Beaujolais vineyards. Or maybe it's an outstanding vintage in Pinot Noir, and we're like, don't know if we can afford to put this wonderful Pinot Noir into this Gamay to make this other thing, you know. So sometimes that's what happens, and then it becomes more scarce. So it's not that they don't make it, we just don't bring it in a lot. As an importer, we really got to weigh the amount of time we can put into that particular item in the market. You know, is there enough interest in it to bring it in, to put that kind of manpower into the effort? Because it's not just us. We have to get our distributors involved, and they have to go out and present it. And then, there's a lot of things that get into a value level wine. When we're selling $800 bottles of wine, it's like, where should we spend our time? Where should we put the fruit this year? What makes the most sense? And, scarcity makes it more fun, right? Not always there. Sometimes you're like, oh man, it's here. We got the Pasta Grande this year. This is great. You know, we treat it as a pre-sale. We don't bring it into the United States just because we're hoping people buy it. We go out and we find customers for it, and then we bring in what we need. And that's another reason there's scarcity, because we're only bringing in what we feel like has already been kind of pre-ordered. And then that doesn't leave extra wine around to just sell because somebody wants it. So that's another reason for the scarcity.
Well, we are super excited. I mean, I've got a glass right here, and it's gorgeous.
Once again, I'm doing a webinar and somebody else has a glass of wine.
Yeah, it's got all this real nice kind of violet floral notes coming out on the nose that are just it really jumps out of the glass at you, but it still has that kind of fresh fruit, bright red fruit thing going on with it as well. I mean, it's.
Oh yeah, and we always say, you obviously want to chill your Pinot Noirs, right? I mean, it's great to chill, have a good temperature anyway. And any red wine, it's good to chill them down a little bit. But on a Pasta Grande, you can even go a little bit deeper on the chill if you like. I think they're great summer reds because they're so refreshing. They have so much pretty fruit that when you bring it down in temperature, and the tannins are so light, when you bring it down in temperature, the tannins don't grip your cheeks because cold can kind of make tannins showcase a little bit more. And the acid and the fruit are so direct, and the fruit's so lush that when you chill it a little bit, you still get that enjoyment out of it. I mean, it really opens up as you sip it on your palate. You get all those beautiful aromatics, and it keeps changing across your palate. And it's great with spicy food. So
Yeah.
give me a gumbo with a pasta grande because of that pretty fruit, low tannin, goes great with spice. It doesn't cool it like a beer would, doesn't have the enzymes, but it certainly has some pretty fruit to help kind of wash that down. And any kind of spice, like Cajun shrimp, anything with some good heat to it, but even the delicate flavors, because the fruit's it's not syrupy, it's not thick, heavy fruit. It's more of an aromatic, gentle fruit. You get it and you feel it, but it's more silky on the tongue. So you'll still get the subtle flavors of a salmon or a shrimp or a lobster with a nice spicy sauce with it, and it'll still showcase those flavors. And because of the high acid, you can have a beurre blanc sauce, something a little creamy or a little heavy, and it's going to cut through that just like it should because it still has high acid. It just has low tannins.
Right.
And they're such an easy food wine. If you're entertaining and you have a bunch of different dishes, charcuteries and pastas and some meats, serve pasta grande. It'll go with everything. Or a rosé. Rosés go with anything too. Love the rosés, man.
So what about this 2018 vintage that makes it so special?
Oh, excuse me. Go Bucks.
Yeah, there we go.
So 2018, we were there in 18 in November for the Hospice de Beaune auction. And, it's the largest wine auction in the world, has been for over 100 years. And Bichot is the #1 purchaser of hospice wines every year. We purchase about 20% of the barrels available. Nice feather in our cap. But while we were there for that auction, it was November, and we're walking through the vineyards, and there's raisins on the vines. They left some fruit behind. We're like, what? Why is there so much fruit still on the vines? And they're like, it was such a bountiful vintage. We had so much fruit. They harvested all the primary fruit, and then they left, the secondary fruit behind because they'd already hit their quotas. Unlike other areas in the world, once Burgundy hits a certain level of in their harvest, that's their level. They can't take any more. So they had more fruit than they needed, than they could harvest. So they left it, and we're over picking Grand Cru raisins, eating them in the vineyards. I mean, it was just amazing to have that opportunity. So that's how great of a vintage it was. Everything came in the way it should. There was some hot times, a week and a half of over 100-degree temperature in July. It may have been June. We were there for some of it. It was because we were there in June as well. It was so hot. It was just unbearable. And then after that, it broke though, just in time, and the rains came to kind of cool it off and bring everything back. And then they had a nice cooler August right before harvest, which you needed to have the grapes get where the acids came in where they needed them to. So as far as a balance in a wine, 2018 has it. It's got the ageability. Got the balance. It's one of the best vintages they've had since I'd say 2010. A lot of people talk about 2015, but quite honestly, 15's a little bit too much fruit for some of your classic collectors.
Sure.
That's why I say drink them now because they're beautiful. I think they're just coming around like an amazing place right now. But 2010 was an amazing vintage as well, and 2018 is going to go right down there with it as far as just a fantastic, well-balanced vintage with everything where you wanted it to be. It's kind of year it is. I would say, it's a unique year for us. We're dealing with this whole COVID thing like everybody else, right? And we're looking at our sales, and everything's moved to the retail market a lot. And we're selling more of our mid-tier and high-end than I think we thought we would. The slowdown is in our mid-tier, our village level stuff, which is going to be names you're more familiar with. Sauvignon Lebon, maybe a Gevrey. Well, actually, maybe lower than that. Some of the more value ones. The pickup is in Chachon Montrachet, Pliny Montrachet, these popular restaurant wines that a person can go and buy at their house. Now they're buying 3 bottles instead of 1 off of a wine list. They're buying 3 to take home. Right. So we're seeing a really accelerated growth in some of those areas, and it's an interesting year. How people are shopping. And our value wines are picking up quite a bit too. Beaujolais are doing great because it's a great vintage for Americans to get into. Actually, it's been great for Burgundy for a good 7-8 years as far as our style, with the amount of fruit we've been getting. for consumers that have tried maybe Burgundy in the past and thought it was a little too dry for them to go back and revisit Burgundy because of the early ripening, the full ripening. It's a good chance you're going to find something that you really like out of Burgundy. And 2018 vintage is one of those great vintages to do that for sure. Yeah.
Well, I don't want to take too much of your time, Troy. I thank you for coming on here and talking with me. And the wine club members will be seeing this in a week or so, and hopefully gleaning some cool information about the wine that they're going to be tasting. So I really appreciate you coming on here.
I mean, I appreciate the opportunity, and if your customers are curious about Burgundy, and if you guys would ever like to do a webinar at the restaurant, and we can do that again if we're not traveling yet, I'd love to get on, do a tasting with your group. It's fun to have them taste through the wines and find some more of those values in Burgundy, because there's quite a few of them. Côte de Bourgogne is a really cool one because it's unique. It's the unicorn wine, you know. But there's a lot of other really cool stuff out there. But I appreciate your time, man. And hey, for your customers who haven't seen it yet, Uncorked.
Yeah.
That was Bichot, and that was our vineyards, and it was a partnership with Joe's as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Nice little tie-in. I love that.
We got some great press from that. We got some good attention across the world for that. It was really.
Yeah. I was actually I was working that day when they were filming in the store, so it was quite an experience, like being there, you know, with the whole film set up, and then, you know, getting to watch the movie afterwards when it finally came out. It was a cool little geek out moment I had. So
yeah, you know, it's trended and it's becoming a little bit of a cult movie. You know, yeah, it's kind of fun. You know, it's not sideways impact necessarily, but for our little winery, it's had an impact. You know, yeah. It's been pretty cool, and hopefully more people come into Burgundy.
Absolutely. Well, thank you, Troy. I appreciate it. It was good talking with you.
Thanks a lot, Walker. It was a pleasure, man. Have a good day.